Matchup number 2 of the day coming to you right now after that quick little break. It is West Garfield Park taking on Luminosity. Now, the most interesting thing about this one, Cookies, on paper, this is the closest matchup we have today, maybe even of the stage, because these two teams, West Garfield Park and Luminosity, have near identical records. Let's talk about West Garfield starting off.
Yeah, with West Garfield, earlier on in stage, they didn't play a whole lot of games, right? They're kind of snaking their way up, pun intended, in terms of games played total. So it's showing in the standings now, and it's showing just how nasty this team truly is. Highlight player Valor is like the perfect complement to Snake. When Valor is just on one like that, this team actually has quite a fragging pair between him and Snake. And Slippery, of course, he doesn't have crazy numbers, but Slippery has a freshly anointed child, and that's okay. It's okay if he doesn't hit the crazy fragging numbers. He's doing his part when he needs to, and Rice fitting in perfectly in that support role. Biles getting to play what he wants. Team's looking good.
I have to say, be careful with the Snake puns. It's a slippery slope, so just be careful there. Now with Luminosity, a lot of puns to go around on that side as well.
I mean, Luminosity, like you guys are saying, it's almost like the exact same story that we saw with West Garfield Park. They're a team that came out of the gates really, really slow off the rip, and then they started to find their footing. It looked like at the beginning there was like very much everyone's just like, oh, we have the best gunners. Oh, we won stage one. There's a lot of disjointed team play. Now it feels like they're really starting to come into their own with their team play. And my highlight player is Asian, who yesterday put up some monster numbers going with a 1.49 rating. I believe he was, let me just check here, 13-6. He's just putting up some big numbers. It's kind of nice to see Asian finally start to come into his own. It's starting to show that consistency. These are two teams very even on almost every aspect. This is going to be a good one. I'm really excited.
I don't know if you heard, Tanner, but I was waiting for a pun, but you were completely silent on that front. So I don't know what's going on. But let's go back over to West Garfield Park. We have finally some critical points for everyone.
Yeah, we had to skip him game one because we was
hurry.
He's moving. We can talk about it nice and slow now. The battlefield. Biologics team actually has quite an advantage here. Luminosity seems to like insta-ban, the skyscrapers, the theme parks. They don't really play those. And, like maps like Villa that are strong for them, Bio's team's also really strong at Villa, as we saw yesterday. And for example, right, there's just one example. I can have a million of them. But basically, they can choose their battlefield and they can pick where they want to go and go down with the ship today. And it's going to be beautiful. Can't wait for the map end phase. And yes, Valor has been playing like everything. He's playing Dokubi, Knock. I don't know if they just sit there and say, Valor, you can just click whatever operator you want and have a good time, but it's working.
Now, for Luminosity, West Garfield 4-game win streak, Luminosity 3 games, so they're going to be looking to make it 4 as well.
Like I said, they just look absolutely dominant. Every game that they're winning recently has been a regulation win. The last 2 games, both on Villa. So Cookie's sitting there hyping up West Garfield's Villa. It's also LG's best map. It'd be really curious if we ended up going to a Villa, and see what ends up happening. But for my critical points, the biggest thing I want LG to do is maintain their dominance. Snake is an excellent on the entry department. Snake is an excellent roamer. He puts up a lot of pressure. He puts up a lot of, he can waste a lot of your time. He can get a lot of good spawn picks. He's really good on his own entry department. But LG specifically has been very dominant. I believe yesterday they went 7-4 on the entry category, and they've just been absolutely mopping teams that they've been playing recently, making sure they're picking up these frags. They're going to need to do that today. They're going to need to be ready to shut down Snake and then be ready for players like Bio and Valor to come up critical afterwards. And if we could just pull back up that point there for a second there, just so I can talk about the last one. No, that's not it.
Bring it back, baby.
There we go. The biggest thing I want them to do is just pay attention to the tempo of West Garfield Park, right? Bio's a player that can, call things on the fly. They can pick up, they can slow down. That's one of the things that LG has demonstrated that they've had weaknesses in the past where they don't really manage their clock properly. They're trying to execute in the last 10 seconds. If they want to have any luck versus Bio, not only do they have to win the entries, they also need to make sure that they're managing their clock appropriately.
Well, considering we went to Villa 3 times yesterday, I think we're going to rename this next segment to just the Villa Veto phase.
You love it, don't you?
I mean, we're looking at these map bans here. We're starting to see all these common bans we've been seeing banned throughout the stage. West Garfield not liking to go to Sky, not liking to go to Oregon. That's pretty standard. And like we said, this is probably just going to be a clash of the egos on the Villa, just because both of these teams, that's their best map. We saw how well West Garfield Park looked yesterday versus Nocturns. They absolutely put on a show. But if you go back to LG, like I said, they've won the Villa their last 2 play days with a 7-4 victory over 2 teams that are historically pretty good on Villa themselves. being unemployment and being Ariel Arise, who we saw have a really good Villa yesterday, despite losing.
Mhm.
This is going to be one of those good games where both teams are very comfortable here, and I expect to see a lot of like experimentation coming out from both teams.
So Cookies, what's your prediction? Because if these two teams are this evenly matched on Villa, which seems to be their favored match, or at least map, or at least one of them, is this not the perfect matchup to find out who the better team is?
Switch me to West Garfield.
Mm.
All right.
Mm.
Now I know that
Yes.
totally defies all logic because what
Let
I just
the hate
said.
flow.
Every time you vote against them, they win. So
I think
Caster's curse.
Bio's been watching the VODs. I think
He
knows
does.
exactly.
He loves you. He loves you, by the
If
way.
he's
Yeah.
watching the VODs,
That's
he
part
would
of
know
the
you
reason.
vote
He
against him.
said he loves me. So you know what I had to do? I had to give him a vote here, and I'm giving you my reasoning why. I think he's gonna have these guys ready to play on Villa. Yes, Luminosity's been perfect at this juncture, but it's been a whole lot of dirty gameplay, a whole lot of Silent having to pull a cat out of his hat, get stuff going. For example, I'm thinking Bio has a clean game ready for these guys, and I don't think they're ready for the logic. I don't think they're ready.
Is it fair to say then, Tanner, just before we get into it, that it's wouldn't be surprising to see either team win?
No, it wouldn't be surprising. So, like, my biggest concern at the beginning of the stage for West Garfield was, they have some shooters and they don't have like everyone shooting. But we saw yesterday, we could just throw that right out of the window. Everybody was impactful round after round. Whether that be Bio, in his big clutches, or that be Slippery, making sure he's getting some nice little sneak plays going around, or Snake on his roam. Like, everybody's having impact every round. And that's something LG has in spades too, that everybody on LG can shoot extremely well. But if West Garfield Park played the way they did versus Nocturnes yesterday, I think this could go either way.
Well, I hope you're ready for it, folks, because this is the Villa showdown of the century. West Garfield Park, Luminosity.
Oh, we had a whole lot of love talk, Bio loves Cookies, Cookies loves Bio, but here, my name is CDABS, and I love the map of Villa, in stark contrast to my co-caster fellow.
Well, didn't even throw into the bus like that. I actually do like Villa as well. I will try to lie and hide myself away from that factor, but I do like the competition we got here going to Villa. We did talk about the strengths that both these two teams have when going on to Villa, and altogether, it's going to just come down to consistency. We have seen a lot of consistency, especially out of West Garfield Park on this map, and sometimes for Luminosity, they can have bigger hit or miss games. If today's one of those days where they just end up missing their mark completely, if they can't do that well on the entry game to try to silence people like Slippery, or also the player of Snake as well that we mentioned a bunch of times, especially when they try to go for those hero roams, for example, this could of course be a very dominating game for West Garfield, but also for Luminosity, it's a comfort map for them, and when they're able to go to maps that they are very comfortable with, they can kind of, let loose a little bit and just kind of do their thing that Luminosity is so well known for at this point.
But what are Luminosity going to do when Silent doesn't get to play Finca? That's a big thing to say.
Maybe
However,
cry a little bit.
yeah, he'll probably
That'd be
cry just a
understandable.
little bit, and then he'll wipe his tear, feel completely fine, and click Zofia instead because
Yep.
they both have an LMG, and he'll be doing the same exact role of getting in the building, being aggressive, in taking that map control on the attacking side for the side of Luminosity. The Thatcher ban, it's also very normal. West Garfield really pioneering the Finca ban makes it look like an FPL game because Finca is never played ever, as well as a Luminosity Malusi ban looking quite good, as that's an operator that a lot of the West Garfield Park players feel comfortable on the roam.
Might be a direct counter to Slippery or Snake, funny enough too. They play that operator a lot, like you had just mentioned, and Azami being taken off the board as well. If you don't play her a lot on this map, it's probably best to get rid of her because she can be very difficult to deal with for really any attacking side. I know we saw in round number 1 a pretty interesting rush strat idea a couple times by Luminosity on this map, but I believe both times they've attempted it, it's completely backfired. So their lineup they're rocking with as of right now for round 1 is probably going to stay the way it is now for the most part. You've got that lurk potential in the hands of Nook where she can kind of go around the map since you have that whole basement floor and a lot of the other portions of that first floor to do kind of what you want, and also that Flores as well to help with a lot of that util destruction. So overall, the lineup here for the attack right now looks pretty good, especially IQ when there's a Valkyrie too.
Yeah, I mean, Valk being up, left up, is going to be insta-locked in by Snake. West Garfield Park, with how aggressive they can be in setting tempo-wise on the defensive side, utilizing information should kind of go hand in hand and be very easily done. especially when Snake's probably going to be the one utilizing his own information. If the cams get used to set up the roam, which is where he's more comfortable on, or even set up a flank, then he can just kind of hit his key and then look at the cams and get some intel. As he almost just had his face in a window while on cams in a very common spawn peak location. That would have been really unfortunate, John. I think we can both agree on that.
I'd have to concur. That would have been a very upsetting way to give the entry to your teammates, but at least you'd be on active cam duty with a Valkyrie. That'd be maybe a little fun, except you have no C4s to play around that, so it'd be mostly just direct confrontations, I suppose. Seems like Luminosity, some of their players, they don't want to get too direct, but they'll have to deal with some sort of engagement eventually. As speaking of Snake, he'll be trying to creep his way, slither his way up the pantry stairs, but he actually falls back. Wants to maybe take a new defending angle, perhaps, against the offense. But same thing applies for Luminosity. They just change up their positions. They don't want to kind of jump into uncharted territory, into those rough waters. Instead, they move somewhere else to be a little more helpful. And Ferda already beginning to break down some of that major utility. One of your only few shields is now off the board, but I believe there's still one near main stairs, and that will be confirmed by Nova. So that spot needs to be cleared out quite well by Luminosity very soon.
Yeah, trying to get a Rotero drone up main stairs, that kind of requires somebody who's sitting right next to it to fall asleep at the wheel. And I think Bob, even though he's an old man, he's more than senile. He's not senile, not at all. As for the rest of Luminosity, they're trying to get some picks, and it's the lurk of Silent to just creep up the staircase and find the kill onto Slippery towards Red. Really well done. 90 control is completely forfeit to the hands of Luminosity. They can start working in because they have this bomb site completely ensnared. Sure, Valor's gonna clap back, but study control as well as kind of 90 control and skull control all going into the side of Luminosity means that they can start working towards their execute. They have a full minute on the clock to play with.
Greatly builds up that attacking prowess, but maybe the fact that Snake is opting to go for a potential flank up Red Stairs could be that potential final nail in the coffin. Once again, Snake will just reposition. Maybe some of those black eye cameras are available. Maybe go for a nitro cell toss-up, but I think he's just actively fishing in through those cameras to try to figure out what play he wants to make in these next 40 seconds. Maybe actually opting to go for that C4 toss-up, not walking up the stairs just yet. Yeah, he's got one prepped out, waiting for someone to try to spring over near 90, and it connects directly onto Silent's body. The Nook now gone. No more grenades left for the attack, but at least they're able to equalize for a brief second. Valor, though, springs up as well with an MPX of his own, gets rid of Ferda, and now we're in 3 versus 2. Not very long, though. Asian springs up as well, connects onto a nice kill, leaving Eddie in a 1 versus 1. 10 seconds left, and Eddie needing to close the gap against a shotgun can be very challenging, but he does have Case, and he'll now force the opposition of Rice to try to move forward closer into Barroom, committing to this defuse. Proxus in the post plant, but Rice is getting ever so closer against the Twitch and lands a beautiful shot in the 1 versus 1. A close call for West Garfield, but they still get the round win outright off of a great play by Rice.
Yeah, a really great play by Rice, but a really strong reposition from Eddie that I thought was going to win him the round because inside a bar, there was no intel. There was not a black eye camera, no bulletproofs, no nothing. So for Rice to instantly know that spot was coming out from Eddie, that's just pure game sense, baby. And Rice looked dang good with the SMG-11, feeling comfortable enough to take that gunfight, and a beautiful flick right onto the head of the Twitch means that, hey, West Garfield Park, they start out on top. Despite them being in the kind of driver's seat for the entirety of that round, things got a little bit hairy towards the end. And that means that the scrappy nature of Luminosity is already on full display, as well as the scrappy nature of West Garfield to find themselves in a disadvantageous position and still bounce back.
Yeah, really a true 50-50. Even though the plant had just gone down for the Twitch, it was still a very close engagement that had to be won with that F2 against both an SMG-11 and shotgun. Both guns incredibly strong, put in close quarter proximity to an opponent. But that round's still going the way of West Garfield, of course. Still now trying to defend this top floor, just this time around heading up in through Trophy and Statuary as the bomb site itself. Luminosity opting for maybe a more aggressive attacking composition. Having both the Ying and the Osa, they could definitely set up a pretty strong post-plant position, especially now that the Warden is no longer being locked in by West Garfield, unless they can have enough utility to maybe find a couple of kills or at the very least slow down and burn away some of those pieces of vital utility. Luminosity on paper, they should have a really good chance of getting that diffuser down and maybe just holding down those key power positions and forcing that initiative once again in the hand of West Garfield.
Yeah, and we saw the smoke canisters already coming out of the attacking variety for Luminosity last round, and even having a Warden up didn't really stop them from getting a bit of map control towards the bomb site. However, this is a completely different story because there's a lot more smoke and a couple of candelas that will strip some vision straight from you as soon as they start flying in towards the bomb site. There's actually some interesting sort of shenanigans that you can do from the top skylight that if Luminosity understand and know, they can get a quick execute in with candelas getting in spots that West Garfield Park could never imagine. But as things stand, everything looks bog standard for this map. It's a study over clear with not a whole lot of pushback from West Garfield. They have some roamers down below to make sure that there's no nade play, even though it doesn't really seem like Luminosity want to go for that meta.
West Garfield are completely all right with allowing Luminosity to take this extension over near Aviator and just play on that first floor, maybe trying to go for a Nitro Cell toss-up. Again, if Luminosity are unaware of that being a factor, if they're trying to go in for that defuse and the info's there with black eye cameras or players, that actual post-plant position could be completely stopped by just one simple C4 timed correctly.
Yeah, exactly. And with intel is always nice, and Game Sense of Bio, who's been playing the game for 80 million years, he should have it. Asian. He also has the idea of you can just pull out your primary gadget and find out any black eye cameras, so hopefully it shouldn't go through. And it does seem like Eddie knows the Candela and smoke lineups from the skylight, so if Luminosity get in position, this execute can come in at any moment, John. Absolutely any moment. As Ash also down below sees that, yep, there's somebody inside of library, there's somebody over on the downstairs that they need to take care of.
Well, 40 seconds to go. Yeah, Asian now learning the brunt of that first floor play as he was down by a Nitro Cell earlier, and he actually gets that entry onto Snake. No more Nitro Cells available, and only one more Toxic Smoke now as the second one will detonate right next to Ash's position near that Boar entranceway. Still, though, just enough time where Luminosity could theoretically set up and maybe try to get that defuse down. Ash just trying to bait out these smoke grenades. He could try to reposition and work his way into Statuary. The only problem could be that deployable shield currently being held by Valor, especially since he could try to go for an impact grenade, but he has none left. He jumps the gun, still wins the fight outright. Nobody knows there's a player inside a closet, allowing Slipper to find so much damage in this round, leaving just Silent, and there's simply no time left. He may find one onto Rice, but it's still a round win altogether for West Garfield Park, as Luminosity just took way too long to set up.
Yeah. Osa shield and you still lose, as Snake is gonna type like he always does. He's a big trash talker. And maybe it helps power him up, but it also opens up the door for the beautiful little Leveron effect that we know here at Challenger League so much, John. Maybe we're going to see Luminosity now wake up because they had trash thrown their way. They're going to be like, no, we're not going to take this sitting down, because slight mistakes have lost them each of the first two rounds. The trade game wasn't the best going towards their execute phase in round one. And they left it to a 1v1. And overall, when there was the 2v1 situation, they probably should have just doubled up and played the trade game and went for the kill instead of splitting up, going for a 1-for-1 and a plant. And here, like you mentioned, for the last round on Trophy Statue, they took way too long. They took too dang long, and overall, West Garfield Park was able to really adapt to where the pressure was coming from and make the perfect plan.
Now heading into dining room, things could definitely look a little brighter for Luminosity altogether, but trying to play for those trade games consistently has always been a major problem for Luminosity. Despite the fact they can be really strong at finding those entry games, they end up just making too many mistakes on their own accord, and their opponents can tend to punish them a little too much, granting no other second chances for Luminosity to strike back to start, despite having a relatively decent early or mid-game once they find that entry. But like I mentioned, now that we have probably one of the weaker sites the defensive side can play on, things do look somewhat better for them overall. Seems like for Luminosity, having Eddie on the sledge, they could still try to go for vertical, but that horizontal clear is at the very least being teased by Luminosity as they were trying to work some sort of early kill near that mudroom window. But for the most part, they'll try to go for that top floor clear, but not expecting Snake to hop out. It allows him to find an early kill, granting the first entry for West Garfield and still allowing them to have a very strong grip on this top floor.
Yeah, Snake, he's no longer on the P shooting MPX. He's on the T5 that does quite a bit more damage and kills a lot faster. He's already looking more comfortable. And now for Luminosity, they're playing a little bit more passive. They don't know how quite to push this because Ferda, one of their primary droners, is now going to be 6 feet under. Ash, he's now droning out the position of bathroom, and Silent right there to back up the drone is actually going to net not only the kill onto Snake, but also the down onto Slippery, which should be confirmed by the nade of Eddie.
Oh, a really close call as well for Valor. He was just a few feet away from having that grenade greet him as well. That could have been a major double kill, unexpected by Luminosity, but still a man advantage and still the option play for vertical is definitely going to go a long way, especially when they still have a minute 20 to kill.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of time to kill, and only the toxic vape canisters, and maybe if Valor finds a kill with the Knight herself, that could swing the pendulum of this round back into their favor. But also an aggressive play could. Rice seemed to want to go for the peek over towards Laundry, but instead the peek up above of Eddie will send him to a retirement and remove pretty much all of the utility off the side of West Garfield's defense. Bio can clap back, but the bomb is going down as a 1v3 situation, and the situation does not look very good.
No, he has to retake the site, stuck in Memo essentially, and now that the case has gone down, the timer is also against Bio as well, not just the man count altogether. Isn't too sure where Ash is playing at near that Tetris position, so it's a free kill for the ace essentially, and it will finally be a round win for Luminosity. But despite the fact that they had lost that entry game immediately from the hands of Snake, they were still able to recover enough to get that vertical down, get those power positions, and then just take the site with relative ease.
And overall, looking at the bans of Malusi as well as Azami, it should make things like really bolstering up a roam position for the side of the defense a lot more difficult. You don't have the Banshees to really slow down and provide audio cues, as well as those Kiba barriers to really cut off certain lines of sights, create one-ways, stuff like that. So for West Garfield to already be starting in 2-1 after the first half of the first half is solid. If they get a 4-2 split like we've already seen, then they'd be in a pretty good position, in my opinion.
Most likely we need to be at the very least a 3-on-3 for Luminosity to probably start leading that favor more towards them when they move over in the second half. So still a lot needed to be done by Luminosity altogether. Again, that was probably one of the weakest sites you can play on this map as a defender, so we have to still see a great amount of adaptability by LG altogether, and especially now that Aviator is being reattempted by West Garfield Park, not trying to go dining room twice in a row since they didn't do that great of a job of winning that round, except for Snake, of course, finding a great entry and kind of shaking up Luminosity just a bit. Spawn Peak being attempted once again by Snake, funny enough, just this time on the Aruni. And I am a little shocked that we don't have the Valkyrie. She was able to provide a lot of potent information, but also to counterpoint that, now expecting the Valkyrie, you're going to see a lot more IQ in play, so it is kind of a waste of an operator pick if there isn't much utility that she can spot out properly with that scanner.
Exactly. I mean, all you really bring is potentially a G8 if you want that good gun, and then 2 Claymores if there's not Valk cameras to really look for. And Snake, he's still feeling comfortable walking around with the DMR. Not necessarily the best gun for a flank, but I think he will make it work as his position inside of the pantry stairs has definitely been unchecked. It was undroned. It doesn't seem like they really have any idea that somebody's over in this position. They're just leaving him be. They're running away. They're not worried. And when you leave a player like Snake unchecked, that's where he thrives, and that's where he punishes you on a consistent basis. We've seen this game in, game out, round in, round out, always on the defensive side. If Snake has space and he has room to breathe, he's going to punish you. And especially with now all of this kind of open position downstairs that Asian has opened up, things are going to get rough.
Already not looking that nice for Luminosity. They've already lost the first 2 opening gunfights. Valor finding the entry, and Bio just able to silence another as well. Things are looking rather grim. There's a minute 20 left to maybe try to salvage this round, perhaps, but there hasn't been much claimed by Luminosity, still having 2/3 of their roster outside the building trying to gather information. West Garfield Park still having a majority of this map in their back pocket. Snake going on a very aggressive run out, but having the information, most likely he can get away with it. He'll gladly take that chance to put this in an even more favorable position for his teammates. Slippery now trying to get aggressive after, I believe, was Bio able to detect someone over near that back doorway and statue. Eddie is able to at least get rid of Slippery from the equation, but it's still a 1v3 until Rice can get revived at some point, so it's not a very good looking situation altogether. He tries to charge into Snake to force that 1v1, but the M14 is just better in that position altogether. West Garfield Park take another round on their defense.
Yes, and like I was saying earlier, when you leave Snake unchecked, he does crazy things, like jump out and run 80 million miles outside of the building to stop you on the 90 rappel. Or pardon me, on the skull rappel. Which is interesting. A really interesting run out, but Snake's just like that. And overall, with the way Luminosity was playing that round, and they've been playing this map, it's not a whole lot of teamwork and a whole lot of synergy. There was just a bunch of 1v1v1 gunfights all over the map. It didn't really seem cohesive, and Snake can thrive in positions like that. Bio can thrive in positions like that because he'll just see, hey, theirs is a free kill, I'm gonna swing and try to get that.
And altogether, the lack of proper team play has been an issue that we saw a lot by Luminosity altogether, especially before the break that we had from that 4th of July weekend. Luminosity, though, not having a lot of success in their attacks, they're going to opt to go for a timeout, which I think is a relatively decent time to go for that. You have a reattempt of Aviator. You can kind of strat amongst yourselves what you need to do better or unable to accomplish that. Now you still have 2 rounds left to potentially have this first half be that, direct even 50-50, that 3-on-3 split, so you still have a lot of good chances on your defensive side. But back to the point of improper team play, it does seem like as of now, Luminosity, they are bravely playing for themselves, and also kind of like what we saw both Gaming and Unemployment do in that first matchup today. It seems like at some points they're cutting some major corners as well, which just isn't working out for them, as West Garfield have still been able to punish for the most part in this matchup.
And that's probably the strongest thing about West Garfield, is that if you cut any corners, they know how to punish. That's almost their game plan. They expect teams at the Challenger League level to make massive mistakes in kind of default clears. Now we're probably going to see a whole lot of emphasis be placed downstairs inside of Kitchen to try to protect that mirror window. With how Luminosity have been really wanting to clear certain positions, there will be a rotation into Master late, as well as probably a study over clear for the initial.
I haven't really seen a mirror in a long time on this map, Connor. Normally she's banned or just outright not played, because if you don't strat around her properly, she can be pretty easy to counter with a lot of the flooring being, destructible, so you can just shoot a mirror up above or underneath, essentially. That'd be the right way to say it, but you'd be shooting upwards to break that little gas pack. And also now with Twitch being a little more viable in certain compositions, she sees a lot more play, which it can also be a direct counter to Mira put in the right hands, especially mute on the board. Those jammers are available, but I don't think they're placed really anywhere close to those mirror windows. Eddie already wasting one of his Twitch runs, I believe it to be, and the second one has been spotted. Maybe even wallbang through the couch as well. So not the best start for Eddie to try to break these mirror windows, but at least he's distracting her for the time being, allowing Asian to step up and maybe find some sort of nasty shot leading in through bar. But I believe now shooting down that 90 cam, his position is known, and the fallback has already happened with that cutoff just landing only a couple shots on the Slippery side.
Yep, and with the first minute not really netting any fruit for Luminosity, the positives are starting to dwindle away. Ash trying to solo push into Master. That's not necessarily a good idea for your diffuser carrier and Soul Hard Breach to try to push into a mirror window by himself. Silent seems to be rotating as well over to that position, which makes me happy. I don't want poor Ash over by himself, but there's also the pressure and kind of danger of down below with a couple of nitro cells, mainly Snake, who's still left unchecked on the roam once again. If there's any intel, any sound cue, any default cam giving intel towards Snake, you could go for a nitro cell, but Valor, who's going to be on those cams now, will have to get the right communication.
Good opening kill for Silent, almost spots another, and eventually it works out for him. Slippery having his back turned, a third for Silent. He steps his way in through bathroom. Eddie will stop the 4K from occurring, but still loads of success being found by Luminosity in the kill department. Snake, the only one left to survive this onslaught because he's on the first floor, but he still dies at the hands of Asian. A flawless round for Luminosity as they just hit the site, and everyone has no idea what just happened to him, at least on the side of West Garfield Park.
Yeah, it feels weird to say that that was a flawless round for Luminosity because that was a flawless round from Silent himself. Just going absolutely huge inside a bathroom and using those pre-existing holes to his advantage, taking out a nasty shot all the way across Ivy onto a head glitching player of West Garfield. And overall, just not too good of a hold from West Garfield. If you play really far back in the bomb site, you're having your Astro slight extension. You have a mirror window in the bomb site staring at Master. You understand that you're forfeiting a position like bathroom and holding kitchen down below. You don't really want to not pay attention to bathroom and let somebody with an LMG just walk in and pre-fire everybody as they peek one by one.
Luminosity now going to have to re-attempt this attack over in on Trophy and Statuary. West Garfield slightly changing up their lineup too, trying to strengthen that position over near Master side with a couple of nice castle barricades. And the Valkyrie is now back on the board, kind of teasing out that operator reselection, because now that Valkyrie has been off a couple rounds, you don't think you need the IQ, but now she's back in play to feed in all sorts of valuable information in the round altogether. Maybe with that first foreplay not working because of Major Like information, now having the Valkyrie could maybe strengthen that a little bit more. But Luminosity, it seems like they want to be a bit more proactive on that first floor clear by already getting Mudroom window opened up and having Asian solo drone himself inside the building from that position I just mentioned.
Yeah, and having Asian solo drone himself, that's not the scariest thing in the world, unless you're a defender. Because Nock, just crouch walking wherever, can find a really good lurk pick, catch somebody off guard, and then disappear off into the night, leaving the team with the man advantage. And that's what I'm assuming they're going to go for. Except, Asian didn't really have to work that hard to get an opener because Eddie had one handed straight to him as Snake just punched a window and jumped out and was dead before his feet hit the ground.
Yeah, not too sure why Snake wanted to go for that close quarters gunfight with an M14, especially being a Rooney. You can just open up that hatch and maybe go for a fallback. I don't know, but didn't work out for the man. Eddie's able to get that first kill for his team, and that does grant a lot of map control over near Study side. The castle detected as well. We could see maybe another early engagement for the offense, but it's not going to work out. Bio falls back and now has a load of coverage over near that hunting/vault portion of the map.
I would assume that Snake heard the audio cue of Eddie getting on a drone. That's what he went for. But it was a good old-fashioned bait. And then it was switched. And then Silent died because he just aggressively walked at Bio even though they had droned him in that position. Seems like they had no idea he was still inside a bar, or it wasn't communicated from Eddie. Now Bio still left alive, could waste away some more time, maybe even get a kill as he almost lands one onto Eddie, but instead he's going to be retired down as Luminosity regains that man advantage.
Still, something is better than nothing, though, at least for Bio, especially when Luminosity just assumed he had fallen back all the way through 90 corner. 40 seconds left, though. That definitely grants a lot of good chances for Luminosity still to try to get this execute off with no strings attached for the most part. Having a vast majority of players over near Master Balcony and having Asian underneath trying to land a couple of cheeky grenade kills to maybe weaken that site presence altogether. Having no more in his back pocket, though, he might try to just creep his way up Astro's stairs if there is no audio or no one playing that close to him. That could be a good opportunity to find some extra damage while Luminosity tries to hit the site from across the map. Eventually that happens, Asian scoring one kill, but the trade game seems quite solid for West Garfield. A 1v1 directly now, and Eddie on 1 HP could die as SMG-11, and he will. Rice still holding strong in the midst of Astro, and albeit we only had one direct kill for Bio, still getting Eddie so low, it really paid dividends in those final moments of the round.
Oh, for sure, because Eddie had to play that so differently. He couldn't really go for a plant and swing. The pre-fire had to land for him to win that round. And unfortunately, he was playing against Rice, who apparently is one of the best supports that we've ever seen. Bio rants and raves about him in interviews, We've seen him plant 5 times in a single attacking half, where he just thrives on playing Habana and playing smoke. He's comfortable in that position. As well, John, what does Rice rhyme with?
I'm not too sure you're getting at this joke. I'll be
It
honest
rhymes with
you.
nice, which is what his 2 rounds of clutches have looked like, as well as
That's
ice, because that's what's in his veins as he's going for these clutches.
I thought you were gonna say something like dice, because he's like rolling out huge plays. But those are two very good
we
ones.
had a plethora of options, and you found another one.
Yeah, I picked option C when it was an A or B answer. All right, we'll take those. Hey, still something is better than nothing. Said that last round. I'll say it this round as well. But Aviator in games now being attempted once again, but this time by Luminosity with the sides finally switching. And their lineup not looking too different from what we saw by West Garfield a couple times. I think the only difference here really is just the emphasis on a alibi. That's pretty much it. Still having loads of utility, having those magnets, having a couple shields across the map as well, having 3 in total because they have alibi on the board as well. So definitely having these grenades still alive and well, not only for finding kills with the vertical, but also breaking those shields could really be huge for West Garfield.
Yeah, and what we've seen from West Garfield yesterday on this very same map of Villa against Nocturns was that Snake was pretty dang good at finding picks. Just lurking wherever the rest of the team would push, then he just appears. As Asian's going to take down Bio, as well as Valor.
Wow.
Vertical angles going massive, and just getting downed by Snake.
And now they have main control. A pretty swift start for West Garfield Park, but they did lose a lot of bodies just off the back of Asian, pretty much playing in a death spot if you want to call it that. So not really the best play altogether for them, but at least now they can begin to apply some extra pressure over near this top floor and maybe have someone rotate down below to maybe go for some grenades. There are still 3 in the pocket for West Garfield, but again, they've broken through 1 shield tops, still 2 on the board. Those power positions being held in the bomb site could definitely be really complicated to clear with, especially there's a shield on top of those spots. So a lot left needed to be done here for West Garfield Park, despite the fact they have main control.
Yeah, having main control is nice, but the utility game still has to be played. Slippery's going to go for a nade that should land a kill. Yep, goodbye Ash. No Toxic Babe canister to worry about, which is a huge positive. No utility directly besides, I guess you can count the glasses of Warden if you wanted to go for a smoke execute, but for West Garfield, they do not have smokes in their back pocket, only a flashbang. And if they start pushing in towards the bomb site, they're going to go for the aggressive play all the way through, probably going for frags as opposed to a behind vault plant spot, especially with how they're kind of pushing and prodding and poking towards the study side as opposed to wrapping 90 over towards Skull.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute brawl. That last stun used to try to clear out the player in 90 to close the gap, but Eddie just dodges it. 2 quick kills with the DMR, leaving just Slippery alone, still outside of the building, hoping that someone could maybe help break the Siri gate for him because he has no utility to do that. He is completely trapped unless he readjusts his location. He'll finally go for that, heading over near the window of study side, but it's the same option, just maybe trying to get in the building, but Ferda's there to greet him with the MPX, and Luminosity, so far, they have a pretty good starting round, but again, the way that West Garfield Park went about getting that map control definitely seemed a bit unorthodox.
Yeah, just knock, crouch at him. Which where I was saying for Snake, his lurk was very strong last game on Villa. Wasn't really a direct entry. It was a lurk, like I said, where the whole team, all 4, were working towards an objective, and then Snake was just doing his own thing. Instead of Snake being on knock with kind of a pea shootery gun, still trying to be sneaky, but in a very predictable manner, getting both Bio and Valor killed in the meantime because he couldn't land the pixel perfect shot over the kind of crouch spamming Asian on a shield. So, with that being so unfortunate, things get rough because of how much utility they necessarily lost on the side of Valor with the Maverick. He lost 2 nades, a pretty dang good gun, as well as that breaching torch. If the breaching torch was in play, most likely we would have seen a rotation and a push through 90 instead of leaving that position unchecked for a sort of Hail Mary execute of sprinting in the bar door.
Luminosity now opting to go trophy room, bringing out a heavy emphasis on the util game, especially since West Garfield losing out on 2 very important assets in that round. They didn't have a lot of utility left to go for that execute. Maybe that could help bolster their defenses once we get a little bit deeper in this round altogether. But a majority of that util focused over on the site, not so much the extension we have going down by Luminosity. It's a very chillaxed position altogether, just being solo held by Asian, maybe trying to break a couple of drones here and there. If someone gets too aggressive, he can maybe punish them. For the most part, once too much pressure is put towards him, he'll try to fall back. He does have backup by Ferda to make sure no one can walk up main stairs, so the first entry will favor West Garfield, but Bio hopping in through 90, cuts through 2 with the LMG in the hands of that Zofia selection. And now Asian has to try to pick up the pieces, wants to confirm that kill on Zofia to re-grant that man advantage, especially since Bio is so low on HP, 1 bullet would put him in the grave.
Yeah, 1 bullet from just about anything. So as the dust settled and everything looks even, you gotta give it into the way of Luminosity, because they removed Snake off the board. Those were the nades that could have been so lethal down below, and it's only Bio left with any explosive utility that could get rid of anything like shields or, you know, the massive amounts of castle barricades that Ash has brought to the table. So, really big opening picks for the side of Luminosity from a utility standpoint, as well as just the good old-fashioned man count. Bio, he's going to have to play passive once again. Sure, he wants to let that LMG sing, but anything will kill him, and that's a rough position to be in. It's going to be up to Slippery, most likely, to be that spearhead, and he's with the 5.52 Commando, which isn't necessarily the easiest gun to get entry picks with.
Bio not even having any drones left either. He might just have to try to play backup and maybe just watch somebody 6 and hope he can find some sort of trade eventually with that ever so powerful LMG. Slippery will try to nudge his way into sight, but there is a bulletproof camera spotting him, so he can't really get away with all that much tomfoolery in these last 50 seconds. Rice using his last drone available to his will to maybe detect somebody over near closet. I believe he just managed to do so, but it's finally been destroyed. No information left. It has to be an absolute brawl once again for West Garfield. They do down Asian, so technically they have that man advantage, but again, the weakness of Bio's health could be very unfortunate, especially since he has Case. If he can get finished off by anybody, that could be a major way to bring back this round. And oh no, they line up for Ash. 2 immediate kills for the castle, leaving only Rice as he just now tries to get active. Not clearing out that master position has been such an upset for the offense, and now things are looking pretty potent altogether for Luminosity. Rice, though, quickly gets rid of Eddie, forcing a direct 1-for-1 unless Asian can get picked back up, but so far, that's not going to happen. The 1 pump with the super shorty will connect perfectly. Rice will be dropped, and the round is still won by Luminosity.
That was scary because Asian was still on the ground. He was DB&O'd. If that super shorty was not believed in enough, Rice wins yet another 1v1 clutch. But instead, Luminosity come away with the round based off of this sort of early play of their roamers. And then also Ash going huge. Those double lineups, and then he kind of got the final 3 kills all by himself. The rest of the anchors inside the bomb site, they were peeking a little bit too aggressively and got picked apart by West Garfield, who were once again just playing for picks. They were poking and prodding, waiting for a mistake by Luminosity to be made, and mistakes were made. They opened the door for West Garfield to get any sort of sight control, but thankfully they had somebody by the name of Ash who was willing to shut the door once again.
And just not having that vital information to know where exactly Ash has repositioned, if he still has control of Master or not, and also still wasting a lot of valuable time not able to get directly inside a Master to kill that castle player, it just led into a domino effect of really bad instances for West Garfield, and they just weren't able to close out that round once Case had been dropped. It did get close, don't get me wrong, but Rice was still in a pretty awkward spot to try to win, even at the 1v1, again, just not having direct information on where exactly Ash was playing in that position. Dining Room now on the board as Luminosity have done relatively well on their defensive side, especially burning through that utility early on, and maybe with 9 flash grenades. Utility is not going to be a problem, and also, as long as they can keep Slip alive, you can maybe go for vertical as well, but so far, he was attempting to maybe tease going in from that base floor, but hey, even if Slippery dies, you've got the Buck alive as well for Rice, so you got multiple options to work that vertical if need be.
Yeah, just really no hard breach which is interesting enough if they wanted to go for a horizontal take. And typically when you have just a default take, you want to get the laundry wall open with hard breach, but doesn't seem like West Garfield want to go for anything orthodox. They're going for an unorthodox entry point. They're going to sledge straight in through the wine barrels and start putting some pressure over towards Brown stairs, and as well as the pantry stairs. They're right next to the bomb site, and there's only really 2 players for Luminosity in close proximity.
Oh, here comes the rush. Asian lines up 2, though, able to shut this down pretty effectively. Rice now giving away his position by opening up that barricade, just gets 1 pumped by Ash. 2 versus 5 now, with once again low utility left and low players left, the big factor of this round. Eddie will immediately eradicate Bio, leaving only Valor left on his lonesome and still outside. Maybe taking essentially a tactical timeout, perhaps? And still having that timeout saved up, but this also does give more time for Luminosity to communicate amongst themselves as well as to what they need to do better. But probably won't be all that much to talk about. They have just won 3 rounds in a row on their defenses, and I believe that it would have been 5 in a row if not for West Garfield Park winning on round number 6. So overall, a much better change of pace for Luminosity altogether once they took that time out. And now West Garfield will try to replicate that exact same thing, but they still technically have 1 timeout in their back pocket, if need be, a frost mat to get the final kill of this round as, well, the lone lion had no idea there'd be a bear trap underneath his feet. So another flawless round to boot here for Luminosity.
Yes, and probably the most perplexing thing about that round was the lack of coordination for the side of West Garfield. Because if you notice, they had 2 very certain in particular operators. They had a Lion, and they had a Dokkaebi, and they went for a rush. But guess what, John? The Dokkaebi call and Lion scan came after everybody already died.
Poor timing.
Poor timing indeed. Really late on those possible distraction tactics, and maybe they could have caught somebody on their phone. Or if they moved just a little bit to the side, they would have had red pings from the Lion EE1B. But at the end of the day, West Garfield Park, when you make a mistake of that caliber, you aren't ready on your team, you're going for a rush, you're going for a time-sensitive execute, and the timing is so massively off, it makes sense that Luminosity were able to just eat them alive.
Well, with West Garfield having a lot of rounds to get a good read on how exactly Luminosity want to play, things should get a little bit better for them. And of course, they always have that, that safety net, of course, that fail-safe, if need be, a timeout, in case they end up looking down the gun barrel of match point if they end up losing that 4th round in a row. Seems like West Garfield want to try something completely different. They're not going to, of course, just waltz their way up main stairs like we saw the first time AV was in play. Instead, they're going to go for more of a full horizontal clear, maybe starting out more near that position of master bedroom, but maybe not. Maybe they all just picked the wrong spawn and had to just waste 30 seconds rotating. That actually might have been the main thing, because we had a majority pool spawn over near fountain, and now everyone has readjusted once again to go for the most part near that study side attack, except for Valor, who's just kind of lurking behind, still playing near master balcony, but he's currently by himself.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can miscommunicate when to Lion call, I guess you can miscommunicate where to spawn.
Yeah,
that's just unfortunate. And wasted time, as now a full minute has gone by and we're still essentially in the prep phase, drone phase. Nobody on the side of West Garfield has even dared take a step inside the actual walls of the building, except a little bit of pressure towards the bottom of the main stairs. The Rotero drones of Slippery actually doing massive work. Asian, he took so much damage, probably should have died, but his shield definitely fell.
Shield's gone as well. We saw the one that was directly on the staircase destroyed, I believe, by a Gone 6, but Silent just destroys Biologic, waiting for that flank, but just not quick enough on the draw. Snake will eventually get rid of Eddie. Asian's still low in HP, trying his best over near main stairs, but at least he has backup directly on that first floor. That logic bomb did in fact go off, both them being utilized, but no one on the defense really seems to care. That information now fully dried up. 70 seconds left for the defense to still just kind of do as they please, continue to rotate, remain mobile, and try to keep West Garfield on their toes. Slippery seems quick enough, though, getting rid of Ferda in the middle of Piano. The man advantage now back in the favor of the offense, but a minute left. There is still high chances for Luminosity to stall even longer and still get this round as a win potentially.
Yeah, and when you have your main spearhead of Snake on such a little HP, things are going to get rough indeed. Silent, he's still left unchecked. We saw him already hit a nasty shot. He's feeling himself. He's feeling loose on the alibi, as well as Ash still having great presence inside the anchor position with all but one of his smokes sort of used already. A single breath of a toxic babe canister that would take down both Slippery and Snake, but Rice, he's the one planting the diffuser.
Yeah, but he's currently being stopped by those toxic smokes we were just talking about. Eventually, he's been down, though. Silent, the only one to hold the front in the middle of Barroom. Spots the hop out, though. Slippery goes down. A 1-for-1. Snake is so low in HP, but the spray down will completely miss its mark. Snake trying to get a little bit closer to the alibi, but Silent still wins it. Match point now in the grasp of the defensive side of Luminosity. But again, a timeout. It is there for West Garfield, so they might need it just to get that little catch of air.
Yeah, I would probably call a timeout in this position if I was in West Garfield Park's shoes.
There it is.
And there it is. Oh my gosh, we're clairvoyant.
Oh, it's like we've done this before.
Wow, we've done
Crazy.
We know a thing or two, because we've seen a thing or two. And right now, we've seen a couple of rounds just get away from West Garfield in the dying embers.
This hasn't looked all that good, to say the least. And the same thing that we talked about for the strengths of West Garfield, having that lurk game still alive can be very important, especially put in the hands of people like Snake and Slippery. It can also apply for Luminosity. Silent was across the map that entire round. He was helping the roam game with people like Ferda, people like Asian as well, who were playing near main stairway. That tried to stop the immediate push that was being attempted by West Garfield, despite it having a slow start because they picked the wrong spawn. And once he had served his purpose in that direction, and once enough of that pressure was actually pushed back by West Garfield, finding a couple of necessary kills, he just repositioned. He still stayed in that first floor, maybe to waste a couple of drones and waste some more time, but then he worked his way back up above and even went back into the site directly to help out that smoke. And if not for the constant mobility by that alibi of Silent, that could have been a very different tuned round altogether for West Garfield, because they did have a small chance to try to get that defuse down, even though there was still one toxic canister left to somewhat deny that default plant position.
Yeah, what must be insanely frustrating for West Garfield is that Snake isn't necessarily having as much of an impactful game as we would expect out of him, and Silent is playing exactly like how Snake played yesterday. That was an absolute thorn in the side of Nokturns, just being so incredibly frustrating on both the attacking and defensive side. You already talked about it, that his roam game was insanely impressive. He wasted so much time, was all over the place, and then delivered some final fatal blows towards the back end of the round. That's exactly what Snake was doing yesterday, but this game, this match, Snake's been pretty silent. Pun intended. He's been quiet. He hasn't been involved as much as we would like to see.
Not really getting active. I mean, that could be said pretty much across the board for West Garfield altogether. We saw a lot of people go positive when they constantly brought out Villa, even a couple of cafe games here and there as well. As long as we keep out one shot, that was a major caveat. Okay. Well, we just saw that happen. That was weird, but the Retainer at least didn't just get randomly destroyed. It broke the shield, so at least that's a good start for West Garfield Park. But in general, their performance against Luminosity so far hasn't been great. And I mean, it makes sense. They've lost, what, 4 rounds in a row? Almost 6. And that would have been game over if they hadn't won on round number 6. So things haven't been looking all that great for them overall. Just seems like the whole team aspect has been very underwhelming. And a big part of that might actually be because of Snake, because if you don't have your main entry player or even your main lurk player do all that much in the early round, that kind of helps disable the rest of your teammates as well. But so far, at least the pace has definitely speeded up at least a little bit here for West Garfield in this last round, potentially.
Yeah, and Snake isn't really with the team, which might actually help them out, providing a little bit of counter pressure and could hit the back and have that misdirection, which could be strong. The Slippery's just going to go right in, take down Ash, who's been an absolute burden and thorn on the backside of the round. And Snake, he does get that lurk pick. Down goes Asian. Slippery gets another kill in a sense of deja vu. The same exact peak makes it a 5v2.
And a 5v1 now. The cutoff was being keenly held by the Nook, but At least he was not expecting another one to be there. Eddie finding three beautiful shots in a row with the MPX, and a 1v2 now will arise during the post-plant position. This could in fact be winnable for Eddie if he can isolate, but he can't win the first of 2 gunfights. Valor out-dueling that Valkyrie, and it seemed pretty winnable after lining up 3 kills in a row, but still, after having such a great early game there for West Garfield, they finally get their footing after a well-called timeout, but still, look down the gun barrel of match point.
Yeah, we're hopefully going to see overtime, because I actually have been very much enjoying this matchup where it's just back and forth, back and forth. And Snake, you heard me talking smack about him. He woke up that round.
Both of us, man.
He got a good opening pick, kind of, right after Slippery got one, and then held the flank, but then died to the flank because who would expect 2 people to be coming up red stairs as the bomb is coming down? Kind of was a little bit surprising. Just like the site choice for Luminosity being this tertiary bomb site. Sure, it was a pretty dominant win for Luminosity last time they were here, but don't necessarily want to give them the credit for this round, because this was a massive West Garfield mistake on a completely mistimed rush.
Well, overall, at least being able to make that proper space and get the defuser down definitely did a lot for West Garfield, getting the win altogether. But yeah, maybe jumping the gun a little bit after that might have been their untimely doom, but thankfully a 1v5, especially in the post plant, is very difficult to come back from, even from the greatest gunners you can see in any range of competition. Still though, match point, it is in the favor of Luminosity. One more round, they'll send us home, but the same thing can go around for West Garfield. They get this round, overtime will be in contention. And for any site that West Garfield could potentially win, this would have to be probably one of the more favorable sides for them. Although we saw a rush play by them last time Dunning was in play, I don't think they're going to go for that, as their lineup is very much different from what we saw last time, except for probably the double soft destruction to try and apply that vertical pressure.
Yeah, hopefully they should be going for vert. Slippery's already starting to drone things out. Hopefully he drones out that frost mat that is right underneath the window, and hopefully he won't just jump in. You don't see that on an IQ scanner because it's good old-fashioned hardware, not software. Kind of, maybe I messed that up, but computer nerds might get angry. Most people won't know the difference. However, as things stand, 1 minute already gone, and the pulse of Eddie has been completely spotted out by Slippery's IQ scanner. They know that, yes, there is a pulse feeding information, and it's also most likely Eddie because that's what he played last time. Silent already lining up this Nitro, could go for a cheeky kill if this upside down repel player is none the wiser.
I think the only thing that has not been noticed so far by the offense is maybe that one frost mat over near the closet window. Not too sure if that can be spotted by an IQ scanner. I'm not too sure if the drone was able to notice it either. That could be a way to feed a lot of information that someone has been downed and could maybe get finished off, or at the very least just brought down to about 20 HP. West Garfield finally entering the building. Valorly spotted the one near bathroom, so he won't get down, but Slippery drops through the hatch, or at least walks through laundry doorway. Can't really decide which one happened, but nonetheless, he gets killed off by Eddie. Man advantage still brought in the favor of Luminosity, as with a minute on the board, they try to go for vertical, but it's far too late. The setup is too strong for Luminosity. Eddie finding a second with his own cardiac sensor and nitro cell combination. Name a better duo. I bet you $5 you probably couldn't. 50 seconds left to go in West Garfield. They are just in an incredibly weak position, just still trying to work for that vertical, but even if they get these key spots opened up, can they actually find any kills off of that? I'm not too sure, because again, they're just low on time, and Luminosity, they can just sit back and force West Garfield to eventually hop down, and what options do they have? Just not much altogether. Rice will eventually try to lead that front over near Laundry. He is able to pick up one on towards Ash, but at this point his position is well known, and he only has 20 seconds to maybe get that defuse down. The jammer being destroyed, opening up a new avenue to maybe hop in the bomb site, but again, the little seconds left on the board is going to grant a very high advantage for Luminosity altogether, not even mentioning that 2 versus 4 position, and one of those 2 players being on such little HP. Rice lands a clean shot through the wall to get rid of Silent. He has to try to take this front all the way through, but Ferda will hold strong in the midst of Memo, and although things got close, we're not seeing overtime, Connor. It'll be ended out quite well, 7-5 for Luminosity.
Yep, and as the chat is exploding, everybody on the side of Luminosity woke up because Snake was talking all that trash. Unfortunately, he couldn't back it up, Eddie was probably the one that should have been talking the most trash because he had an absolutely amazing game and wasn't necessarily playing the most glorious ops. Probably his best work was on the pulse that we saw in the last round, as well as the flawless round of the kitchen defense that maybe helped them, understand that the rush was coming through.
Yeah, and altogether, it just seemed like, I talked about the hit or miss for Luminosity. At the beginning, it did look very much miss for them, but, they took a breath, they went a timeout, and they really did change up their play style a whole amount. I mean, they still play very aggressive. That's always what Luminosity has been known for, but you saw the team play, you saw the synergy really thrive, and when West Garfield were trying to get unconventional, they were just completely out of their element, and because of that, they fed away too many rounds against Luminosity, granting them this win altogether. But still, a great showing nonetheless. Think about the analysts finally up and ready, though. We'll throw it back to them to get their whole matter on this matchup itself, as it was still a complete spectacle to behold today.
Although we did not get to overtime, this match certainly did not disappoint as one that was heralded as a tight matchup. But I do want to talk about a couple players in particular. We know that Rice has the clutch factor, unfortunately not at all the moments they needed today, but Tanner, Silent, Eddie, Asian, these guys were just doing everything right.
I mean, they were getting picks in every sort of manner, and it was really coming into their own on the defensive half. They played, I believe they played 6 rounds of defense. They won 5 of them. It just seemed like everything was kind of lining up for them the way that they needed it. Even like we just saw in the replay, like Ash, he absolutely had a monster clutch there where it looked like the round was going to be a Viper's win, and it just things lined up for him. Now, I don't like. Sorry, I'm going to backtrack. His positioning allowed the things to line up for him, right? His intel, like his foresight to be in the position of concrete, to maneuver around the drone work, allowed him to kind of be in that position, and just it was an excellent gameplay coming out from all of them. I just wanted to be clear, it's not because they lined up for him. All right, before I get flack.
Absolutely roasted on the TL. You don't want that. Okay, CJ. I do have to talk about West Garfield for a second. I do think that they had an impressive game. Their defensive half was impressive as well, although there were a couple of falters here and there. It's just unfortunate they did not seem to be able to translate that success onto their attacking half, where, as Tanner said, Luminosity pretty much shut it down.
I'm going to blame the Levron effect. Snake typed.
Round 1. Typed round 1.
That's an early type.
He typed way too early. They weren't even out of the first half of the game yet. Snake's typing. And then Snake had he finished 8 for 11. But when I talked about it earlier, I was hyping him up. It's Snake and Valor. Those two were playing somewhat like as a pair. They're like the most elite pair in the league over the past couple games leading up to this one. And wasn't really there. Snake just kind of ice cold throughout most of this game, put it politely.
Yeah, I think it's important to note here that I don't want to dwell too much on West Garfield at the moment. What I do want to dwell a bit on would be Luminosity, because they did get the win, and it's important to share in that win and let them talk about the win. It's going to be Wafer to do that. Wafer, a big win for you guys. Congratulations. This was a close matchup. Did you anticipate it being as such?
Well, Vipers have been having like a good results lately, but like at the end of the day, man, I always said, and it's not disrespect, how capable we are, and we won.
Did you expect to have that surge back like you did on defense? Because you guys flipped over and won 4 in a row, only barely lost out on that 5th, and then obviously sealed it out in the end.
Well, we were trying some stuff in the attacks, it didn't work out. The pass actually worked a lot, it helped us to reset. But as I told you, when we're confident, we know like if it's not an attack, we will win on the defenses. We don't care. We know we will win. That's all that matters at the end.
And it's important to note that it wasn't one guy carrying today. You had multiple guys. Every guy stepped up and really did their part.
I mean, as last stage, if you see the stats on last stage, everyone on the team wasn't go crazy. Everyone on the team is doing their job, even if the stats doesn't reflect it. Everyone on the team is doing something for helping out. So at the end of the day, like stats doesn't even matter.
Mhm.
It's just the
Well,
teamwork.
congratulations on padding those numbers for the overall standings in the season, and I'm sure we'll talk soon, Wafer.
Thanks. See you.
Have a good one. Forceful, I know you wanted to jump in with another point before we flip to break.
I just wanted to talk about the importance of timing of your timeouts. This is I want all the future IGLs out there and all these coaches just take this wisdom. All right, don't call timeouts on match point. Right, use your timeouts even if you feel like you don't need them. You guys got to start using your timeouts when you want to kill the momentum. If a team wins 2 or 3 rounds in a row, that's the time to call a timeout, not when they're on match point. You saw right after the timeout from West Garfield Park how explosive their attacking round was. Had they called that just a round previous, this could have been a very different game. And I'm sorry, I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing these really poorly timed timeouts that just like in the best of ones, they need to be perfect. It's a science, but it's also an art. You can tighten it up a little bit. And I feel like teams could just actually start being competitive with their timeouts in general.
How about this line for you? Use the timeout so that you don't need to use the timeout.
Or just, kill like even if you feel like you don't need it, just be compassionate to your teammates. Maybe just give them a nice little mental reset to get a drink of water, and then just kill the momentum. If someone's really hot and you let them be hot round after round after round, I just feel like you're wasting an opportunity to just slow them down a little bit.
Well, I think it's important that we stay hot round after round after round. So we're going to go for a little timeout of our own. When we come back, it's going to be Aerial Arise and Rent Free.